What's going on, Dustin? Can you hear me okay? Let me know if everything sounds okay. I kind of got printers going on in the background and stuff, so if there's a little background noise, let me know. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay before we go ahead and get started. Also going to wait for a few more people to jump on board so I can show you guys exactly how we're going to be putting this Digivice together. I'm going to be taking you through the entire process, soldering all these things together, what you need to do, how to do the code. This is going to be a fun live stream, so make sure you guys got something to drink, maybe some popcorn or something, because it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to wait for a few more people to jump on board, and we're going to go from there. Dustin, you are a new patron. I'm hoping that you are enjoying yourself thus far with the Patreon. And get my screws all ready to go over here. Oh, thank God, my print just got done. I can't show you guys what I'm printing because it's actually going to be for next month. So you guys are just going to have to wait and see what that's about. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go over all the materials you need. I'm going to show you my breadboard prototype. I'm going to show you exactly how you need to do this entire project without having to worry about not being able to do it. And this is good. This is good for all the projects we do on this Patreon. Having trouble with the Green Lantern rings, but not much of the problem. What kind of trouble you're having with the rings? There are two parts. You have the main jewel, the main ring, and then you have also the jewel that sits on top. Some of the rings also have a small little cutout that kind of brings the insignia out on the ring. I think that's fear, and I want to say hope, maybe. I haven't been meaning to print those. I haven't printed them yet. I just made them up. Actually, the one of them was a commission that I did for a client, and he wanted fear. So I just went ahead and did the whole entire set and kind of went from there. So yeah, what kind of problems are you having with those rings? Maybe there's something for me to look into for you. Gonna plug in my soldering iron, get that going. Just gonna wait for a few more people to jump on in, and then we'll go ahead and start. So I have my setup right here. I printed my Digivice parts. I use glow in the dark. You want to use some type of white filament because white is a really good diffuser when it comes to LEDs. So white or glow in the dark. I'm using glow in the dark because that's all I had on hand at the time. I just literally bought some white for a project that I'm prototyping for you guys next month. So, but I use glow in the dark because after it's done glowing or the LEDs are done, you kind of get a cool glow effect, and I dig that. So that's why I went with glow in the dark. Here are all of our components. We're going to be using our Arduino Nano. This board is very powerful. It only gives off about 5 volts though, unfortunately. So kind of lame, but 5 volts is what we're really typically going to be using with some of these projects. We won't be going over more than 5 volts, and it pumps out about 2 amps. So this thing is small, it's compact, gets the job done, and you don't have to worry about a lot of real estate inside of your project when it comes to these things. And this is why I like these little Arduino Nano boards. We have our buttons, and it comes in this little button assortment pack. You get different colors, different assortments here, and this is on Amazon. I think I got this, I don't know, $12 or something like that. Everything is in the bill of materials that is online. I haven't added pictures to it yet, but I will do it soon. Blue cutout are hard to print, and the yellow is smaller than the rest, and this cutout is hard. You might need to scale those up when you print. They're not ready to be printed. I scaled them to my client's hand. His hands are a lot smaller than mine. So if you're having trouble, maybe try scaling those up a little bit. Because when I did the fear, it came out okay, especially with the insignia. I did actually resin print those. So if you're trying to do FDM, printing those little insignias, it might not go over well. You might need to get it in some resin, which is what I got behind me, a whole row of resin printers. So you might need to think about maybe resin printing if you don't do that. It was actually designed to be resin printed I didn't expect anyone to go ahead and do it on FDM. It's kind of difficult. So yeah, back to this. Our buttons, we got that. This is our rechargeable battery, and this actually will plug into the Arduino, giving it power. Also, it's rechargeable. So the way you recharge it is when you add the connector, which I'm going to show you how to do, plug it in via USB and it'll charge overnight. I had to do that with this one a little bit ago, last night actually. And then you have the star of the show, your LED ring. This thing pumps out all the colors for you, so you don't have to worry about doing any of that. All right, got a little bit of solder in there I need to clear out. Give it a second, folks. I also need to get some water for my sponge. Wherever that, here it is. Be right back. Okay. Just going to wait maybe about a couple more minutes for everyone to get on board, and then we will go ahead and start the show. I really want to clear out the solder though on this port because that's going to be a problem later. If I can get in there and get that out. Almost. If you guys are just joining us, go ahead and announce yourselves. I can do it from the other way. Microphone back on. There we go. Probably can hear me better now. Just clearing out some solder. I had to desolder my own prototype in order to help you guys. So. All right, I hope that works. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Anybody who wants to jump on in, they will just have to jump on in the middle. So I'm going to go over all your materials that you're going to need, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you my prototype breadboard and where all the circuits sort of kind of go. Okay, so we went over everything here. This is your basic material that's on the list that you are going to need. All right. Second thing is helping hands. This is to help you guys like kind of hold things in place while you solder them. It's very useful. It is not necessary for this project, but it does help hold things in place when you have a soldering in one hand and then the soldering iron in another, and you need to hold like a button down in order to properly get at these conduits here. So very useful stuff. You don't need it, but like I said, it does help a lot. It does help very much. All right, next up we have our screws. Now these are M1 screws. They're probably the smallest metric screws that are out there, and that is to help mount the nano onto the footprint that is right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what that's for. Doesn't really matter how you mount it. I prefer to mount it the other way, but these screws will help secure this in place so the board isn't rattling all over the place. Again, we talked about our buttons. Very useful, very easy to use and solder. I would get a pack of these and just kind of sit on them. They're also smaller 6x6 by 0.4, maybe, I think. 6x6 by 4 millimeter buttons that are basically standard for any Arduino project. So if you bought an Arduino kit, like a starter kit, you're probably going to have a little bit of little small black buttons, kind of what you're going to see on the prototype breadboard I got over here. Wire is important. This is 28 gauge wire. It is very thin and it's easy to use, not as stiff, and it's perfect for a project like this where you're going to have to manage all of your wires. I mentioned that in the instruction manual that wire management in this project is super critical. You got to know how to wire everything together and to keep them from getting in the way of these embosses here that's going to be used to screw together your device. So make sure 28 gauge, perfect for these little projects. We have our bigger screws. These go from M2 all the way up to M4. we're going to be using the M2x10s, I believe, to kind of secure this all together. So little nice kit that I got from Amazon. Everything that you're seeing here is from Amazon, so you do not have to worry. Everything is listed in the post on Patreon. So if you guys are joining us, this file is a Digivice that we're building. You can get the file over on my Patreon, patreon.com/Will@Heroic Link in the description. Check that out. We have our connectors. Now these connectors are JST connectors, and this is what we're going to use to connect the battery, as you can see here. Get in there. This end is actually going to be connected to your Arduino, okay? So this is what's going to be delivering power. Instead of directly soldering this battery into here, this is actually what's going to keep it to where we can disengage. Maybe you want to use the battery for something else or charge it another way. This keeps it to where you don't always have to have this thing connected, because you need to charge it every once in a while. Yeah, you charge it through the Nano, but I don't like to solder power supplies directly onto boards, because you never know if that power supply becomes faulty or you need to get a new one, you know, just to be safe altogether. Now for the miscellaneous stuff, soldering iron. If you guys don't have a soldering iron, they're really easy to get on Amazon, something that you're going to need. A little beginner's kit come with some solder, which I need to get some more of, as well as wire strippers, which we are going to be using a lot of, stripping wires. And of course, we got soldering removal. This is things that sucks your solder out if you need to kind of clean up and start over on your build. And of course, you're going to need a screwdriver, okay? Preferably something that has removable bits and stuff to where you can see it. Is my camera underneath my board too blurry? No, I think it's fine. That's cool. Printed in clear PLA or resin. This is printed in PLA, the board here. What happened? There we go. Yeah, this is printed in glow-in-the-dark PLA, actually. It's not printed in resin or anything like that. You could print it in resin if you want to. You could print it in clear PLA, but I mean, clear resin would be a little bit expensive. Well, it wouldn't be expensive, actually. It probably would be just perfectly fine. I wouldn't go ahead and use resin on it. You could. You totally could. I wouldn't do that. I would just get like white PLA is the best way to do it. That would be the best way to do it. Any other color PLA, the light will shine through, but because of the color PLA, you might get a mix of different colors. Okay, so there's that. All right, I'm gonna move all this stuff aside, and I'm going to show you guys my circuit, my breadboard prototype, because prototyping is super important when you're doing these kinds of things. So I'm gonna move this out of the way, and I'm gonna bring you my prototype. So I always prototype all my circuits before I go ahead and solder them in. These little black tactile buttons are the standard buttons that most beginner Arduino products use, or product starter sets, whatever. Oh boy, I don't think I have an extra USB port. I don't, but that is okay, because I have a battery pack. Battery packs work. Or a power bank, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to plug in the power bank. You're going to see the green light on my Arduino turn on. There it is. And so I've already preloaded the code on here. So everything is ready to go. So when you hit these buttons, the LED ring is going to react. This isn't the LED ring that we're going to be using in the project. The one that we're going to be using is actually a lot smaller. This one has 12 LEDs. This one has 16. Doesn't matter. For prototyping purposes and to test the code, it's okay to use a bigger LED ring or LED strips, whatever you have, okay? So when you hit all of these buttons, the LED ring is going to respond in different animations. I did it this way because I wanted to kind of symbolize different kinds of digivolutions that are going on. So it doesn't really specify which one is Mega, which one is Champion or Ultimate. I just wanted to do something different. And of course, you can go ahead and change the colors of the LEDs, no big, really easy. And I will show you exactly how to do that later on in the live stream. So this is my prototype. This is exactly what you're going to be doing. The circuit, I can't really show the circuit right now because I only have one screen, so that's that. Do you print with supports? I did print with supports. I actually printed the top with supports inside. So I printed it face up and I printed all the supports on the inside in order to kind of, you want to get as much of the features. Mine is kind of rough because the supports did come out, but it's not too rough to the point to where I can't get all my parts in there. So yeah, I printed this part with supports. This part I printed flat. So this part was on the print bed, printed it up like that, real easy. You don't have to print any buttons or anything. The antenna might be a different game. I would probably tweak my printer settings for that or go ahead and print it in resin. All right, so we see here that the circuit works, as you can see. Real easy stuff. And it doesn't matter where you put your buttons. It doesn't really matter where any of that goes. It all depends on getting it all in there to work properly. So boom, prototype circuit. You got your grounds, you got your pinouts. Everything that you need to know is in the code. And like I said, later on, I'm going to show you the code and what exactly you need to do to actually do that all together. All right, cool. All right, I'm going to put my battery bank away. And we're going to get started doing the fun stuff. Do anyone have any questions before we get started? I got 4 viewers. If you're new, go ahead and announce yourself. We are building a working prototype Digivice. Well, mine is a prototype. Everyone else is probably going to be their first build. So my Patreon specializes in doing these little DIY projects, mainly with items from our illustrious childhood that no longer exists. Digivices, power morphers, weapons that light up, things that have sound in them, stuff like that. May is actually going to be a very, very impressive month. And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. We got about another little bit more than a week before you guys sort of kind of start seeing what I'm working on for May. But it is going to be worth the wait. So grab a drink of water. And I'm going to move my prototype breadboard out of the way. In the instruction manual, we do have a circuit of this. So there you go. It's so weird when my prints get done printing. It just gets super quiet. And then you think something happened. But no, it's just the printer getting done printing. All right. First things first. We need to solder wires onto these buttons. You don't need to put the caps on them yet. First thing you want to do is check, make sure they click. You can hear them clicking. At least I can. I don't know about you guys. And you want to pull out your wires. Okay. I normally just stick, when it comes to buttons, red and black. Okay. Red obviously is for power, but instead of it going to power, it's actually going to go to the pinout on our Arduino board. And of course, black is ground. And I'm going to show you guys how to consolidate all your wires here in order for you to utilize the only other ground on here. So what I mean by that is that if you turn the board over, you will see that you have a ground, a screwdriver or something I can point to. Yeah. Nope, over there. You have a ground here, and then you have another ground here, okay? This ground here is going to be taken up by the power connector, so we won't have a second ground. The other ground is going to be here, and since we have 4 components that require ground, we're going to have to splice the grounding wire up together into one wire and utilize this grounding wire right here. Not as hard as it sounds. It's actually very easy, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how we're going to be doing that. You want to focus? You want to focus on me? You want to focus? You want to focus? There we go. Cool. Sweet. But before we get into that, let's do our wire. So cut off a little bit, I would say go long, and then just cut off and then divvy up the wires. So boom. We got our ground. I would say match the length of the red too. Like that. There we go. And cut the wires. Since we have 3 buttons here, I'm going to divide this wire into 3 different segments. So when you're cutting wire with projects like these, make sure that you always cut longer than you need. Because when it comes to consolidating wires, we're going to need to cut, and it's better to have longer wires as opposed to having too short wires. And like that. Any plans to add electronic circuitry to the D3s or make the detector in Digimon Frontier? I do have plans to make more Digivices. The problem is that with the D3s, there's nothing really to, like, what do you do? Like, light up the screen, I guess? Light up the grids? I don't really know what to do there in terms of lighting up the D3s. So that's why there wasn't an electronic version of the D3s, because I don't really know what to illuminate. There might be something to where I can program in like a small little circular LCD and maybe put a creature in there and you can just take it with you or something. I've been mulling over some of these ideas. I haven't really come up with anything as of yet. All right, so we got our wires cut up. We're gonna take your wire strippers and we are just gonna start stripping these wires. Strip off a little bit to expose that wire underneath and make sure you twist them, okay? You want to do both ends because one end is going into the Arduino board. So just to save you guys a headache. That's 1, 2. To the other side. Make sure you're doing both sides like that. And you can always trim these extra wires off later on. Okay? Okay. So this one, like that. Ground, like that. Cool. Like that. Yeah, you want to get those wires exposed, cut off the insulation, strip them. There you go. All right, I'm just going to put my wires back into the box. And music. Yeah, you know, that's a little bit tricky. Music, speakers, that stuff uses a lot of power. So the whole trick with a lot of this stuff is that, okay, I'm not a state-of-the-art toy company, so I don't have the R&D resources to build my own like PCB board that can handle, you know, more voltage than what I'm giving. So music, I've actually thought about it, but that would require a lot more power than what the Nano can pop out, like 5 volts. Probably more like 12 volts because you have LEDs, you have an LCD screen, you're also going to have music. That's going to be a lot of voltage for, you know, a little device. So it's been thought about. I just don't have the means to quite do it yet. It's not saying that I won't, but at some point it could be a reality. All right. So we have our wire stripped. For this is an open and closed circuit, meaning that the circuit is open until you hit the button. The button closes it. So with that being said, when it comes down to soldering wires, you want to do the opposite. So if you're going to do this node here, you want to go ahead and solder in the node that is directly cat corner. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. It could be power or ground or power and ground. It entirely depends on what you want. All right, so I'm bringing in my helping hands here. I'm going to move you guys off to the side. Things are kind of a little bit awkward to use, just a bit, but I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. Maybe if I move my camera down a little bit, you guys can see it better. I'm just going to snap this little guy into here, like so. All right, so that's how we have it. So remember which way you soldered. So I'm going to take the other hand, we're going to place the wire in there, in the teeth. What I kind of want to do, you kind of want to have your point parallel to where you want to hit it. So this one actually needs to be, trying to hold it on the button like that. Something like that. And you see that wire here, it's kind of long. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to trim a little bit more off of here. Not a lot, just enough. Actually, good old die cutters. There we go. I'm going to do the other side too, just to save me some time. Cool. Actually, these die cutters. And that. All right, so now I'm going to bring this over. Make sure your wires are tightened and twisted. Make sure you're twisting those wires really, really good. You're going to lay it as much as you can onto that node. And this is the point of the helping hands, is that it's going to hold in place what you need. That way you don't have to sit there and worry about doing anything else except focusing on soldering. Let me see if I can clean this up. Make it clearer for you guys. Nope, that's folder. Let's see. Should be autofocusing. I'm sorry that it's not autofocusing like it should be. Maybe if I move it down more, it'll focus a little bit. There we go. All right, sorry about that. So I'm going to take our solder bands. We're going to take our soldering iron, and we're just going to lay a little bit of solder onto that node right there. All right. Check if the connections are secure. Nope, not a good connection. You got to make sure you get a good connection. Make sure that soldering is on there as it should be. So that way when you lay it down, you're good to go. I'm a mechanical engineer. I don't usually deal with a lot of electrical components, but I only barely started messing around and dabbling in Arduino when I started this Patreon. So I wanted to do something cool. I wanted to not be like all the other Patreons out there that, you know, just give you files. I wanted to give you guys something that you could build and kind of utilize, you know, practical use. I mean, that's what 3D printing is for. Cosplay is fun, don't get me wrong. It's just being able to utilize something more out of what you 3D print is actually a lot better. All right, that a good connection? Yep, that's good. So we're going to turn it over. And so we're actually going to solder a ground wire onto that node right there. So take one of your ground wires. I'm going to go ahead and trim this up right now. So yeah, enough. Okay. Use our helping hands. Set that on there like so. I did not cook any dinner. That is unfortunate. Oh well. All right. Let's do it again. Solder that stuff down. Be using my mirror here. All right. See if that's good connection. Yeah, it's pretty decent. All right. So looking at this, got some pretty good connections here. You should make it to where none of this is gonna like be pulled off easily or anything like that, okay? So that is good. Looks good to me. We're going to set that off to the side. You want to do the same thing for the other button. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out for you guys. What was my infill density? 10% maybe, not a lot. I don't use a lot of infills. You can go ahead and compensate infill for number of walls. So I had 3 walls, and that is enough to give it a nice durable edge to where you don't need a lot of infill. You really don't need a lot of infill for a lot of prints. You save a lot of material. My infill, unless I'm printing something really big, like maybe armor or something, my infill does not go past 15. I add a wall, I add a few more top layers, a few more bottom layers, but other than that, my infill does not go past 15%. Like anything 20 and over, that's a lot, and you're kind of going through filament at that point. To print a helmet, probably a little bit more half a roll with my current print settings. All right, let's lay that down. There's still some solder on here from when I desoldered everything, so maybe I can get away with using what was left on there. All right, I'm gonna throw some more solder on top. Let's make sure that connection is secure. There we go. All right, let's check. Make sure that connection is secure. Perfect. That feels good to me. All right, let's do the other side. All right. I think I'm going to use a newer Arduino because I think I might have burned the one I had. Do that. And do that. All right, so we want to go cat a corner. That one still has some solder on there too. I can see it. So try to use what's left over. I'm actually going to have to order more soldering material. I'm almost out. All right, throw some more soldering material on top. Get a good connection there going. There we go. Check the connection. Yep, feels good to me. All right, set that off to the side. Last and final button for each here. Okay. Okay, can you guys hear me now? I have to replace my microphone. Make sure it's using the right mic. Audio, USB, mic. Okay, cool. Look about that. I thought I charged these things before I started working, but I guess I did not. Oh boy. Getting the solder out is a pain in the ass. Cleaning out solder is not fun. Just so you guys know. Probably could get away with it. I'm gonna try. All right, so we have our LED ring. This is where the fun begins. Let's pull out our wires. So we're gonna use black, we're going to use red, and we're going to use good old baby blue. So our blue is going to be our signal wire, and that's what's going to be going into the board. Power and ground. Oh shit, did I just forget where that go? No. Okay, so power is going to go into the 5-volt port on the Arduino. This is going to be spliced with the other grounds we mentioned before, and this is the signal wire that's going to go with everything else on the board, pin 6. I always use pin 6 for my boards. All right, so I'm just going to cut these up. Not going to cut them out too long. It's just long enough. Again, always cut enough wire to where you don't have to unsolder and resolder. All right, got our 3 wires: ground, signal, and power. I'm telling you, man, these wires here, these are great. I love how flexible they are. They're not too stiff. They work just great. You don't want to go overboard when it comes to these things. All right. So we have our wires. Let's strip them. Let's strip these really quick. All right, let's try that. Perfect. Do the other side. All right, so the LED board or the LED ring should be super easy to solder together, because normally what you would do is just string the wires through, tie them up, and then solder them that way. But because I got solder in the nose here, it's going to be a little bit tricky for me. So I'm going to see what I can do. If not, then I feel like I might have to go upstairs and get my secondary ring, which I hope I do not have to do. That would suck. I only have 2 of these. Not saying it's broken or anything, it's just, it's easier. All right, so I'm gonna go with the D1. So blue wire is gonna go to your D1 connection, okay? That would be this connection right here. I'm gonna try and see if maybe I can heat it up to get it in there. It might work, maybe. It's gonna be very, very tricky. I don't like this. All right, shit. All right, let's see if I can get this in. Let's put it in there first, kind of get it started, and then heat it up. Maybe I can get it. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. Okay, so that one went in without a hitch. Perfect. Hope the other one does it. So when you get it in like that, where's that? As you can see, the wire is already through. All you got to do, I'm gonna cut off some more of this, because it doesn't need to be that long. All you gotta do is fold it over, just like that. Fold it over, and then throw some solder right on there. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, just a nice little dot. Sorry if you guys can't see clearly. It's kind of hard to have a camera overhead while at the same time trying to solder stuff in. Okay, here we go. Let's get just a little dot. That's all we need. All right. I don't think I nailed that. Put this magnifying glass out of the way, but let's try it again. There we go. Perfect. That's it. All right, let's switch gears to the other ones. That is our data line. And I'm going to test this to make sure that I didn't damage anything trying to clean it up. If I did, then I'm going to go and do it again with another ring. And I don't want to do that. All right. So next we're going to attach our black wire to the ground, which is right here. Again, I'm just going to go and do what I was going to do originally. Heat up the wire and then thread it through. Make sure you cut off some extra material because you don't really need it. It's kind of hard to see where you're going. You got to kind of look at both sides here. All right, put you there. Come on. What's going on with these other hands? Why are they wobbly? You're not supposed to be wobbly. You're supposed to be helping. Move this out of the way. Ah, probably a bit better to do it that way. All right. Maybe if I go around the back side, might get it easier. So that one didn't go all the way through, but it has a somewhat decent connection. I'm going to throw some more solder on the back just to make sure that that is a good connection we got going on there. There we go. And last but not least, we have our power node, which is right there, staring me right in the face, saying, aha, I'm full of solder. What are you going to do about it? I tell you what, sir, this is what I'm going to do about it. So if you messed up your LED ring, you might have burned something, just okay. You should have bought more than one, first of all. Second of all, you can always check it with the prototype board that I showed earlier in the live stream. So super easy. I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do that. You can just plug it in with these little wires that you've already stripped, and you should be good to go. So let's go ahead and see if we can thread this last one in there. Actually, I want to go underneath. Probably would be better. Okay. Perfect. Cool. And you know what? That wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. All right, I'm gonna throw some solder on top to make sure that connection is a-okay. And then I'm gonna make sure that the LEDs are working the way I want them to. All right, I'm gonna turn it over and do it on the back side too. You know, a good LED ring would make an awesome arc reactor. Might do that next. All right. Just like always, make sure your connections are secure. Okay. These are all your LED wires, all connected. So now we're simply going to take this LED ring, we're going to put it into the prototype circuit that I showed you earlier, and we're going to see if this thing works. Hopefully I didn't burn anything off. Oh boy, so many wires. Why are there so many wires? Okay. Move it over here. All right. So we're going to remove this LED ring, remove the ground, power, and the, there we go. Turn up a little bit more. Cool. So now we're going to plug in our signal. Where's the signal? Sorry, I'm used to seeing it this way. I'm going to plug in our signal. Make sure these wires are very, very twisted up. Put it in the signal port. Power. Can anyone guess what the power goes? I'm going to trim this just a smidge. Power. One thing about these wires is that they are flimsy, so trying to force them into the ports on the breadboard is kind of difficult, but you don't need a really stable connection. We're just trying to make sure that this ring isn't damaged. I don't think it is, but you don't want to go ahead and put everything together only to find out that you just killed your ring. That would suck. Come on, baby. All right, good old battery pack. Plug her up. All right, so hitting this, there we go. We're good. The ring works. Yay. Make sure all the animations work as they do. So again, we just soldered on the ground signal and power wires onto our LED ring that we're going to be using in our Digivice, and all the animations are working. And that's all you need to know. Do it again. That is bright. That is bright. There you go with that. And of course, you have whatever that's supposed to be. I just chose random animations. There's nothing to it. So there you go. All right, all done with that. So the hard part is basically done. Take that back. The hard part is semi-done. It's going to get a little bit more complicated as we move on, but that is okay. Don't even worry about it. So let's remove this. Take our connections out. There's your ring. Throw it off to the side. You're good. All right. Now we're going to have to solder in the battery onto our Arduino. I'm going to use a brand new Arduino that I haven't opened yet, because this one is clean. There's clean ports. So now, if you really want to get easy with it, I guess you can say, the Arduinos come with little pins that you can solder in. I think you solder them in this way. You can solder them in and then make the connections here. Problem with this is that, again, the space that we're working with is really tight. We don't have a lot of space. So I kind of just forego the pins and wire them hard into the board itself. Again, these things, they're small, but when you start adding in these things like these pins and stuff, it really starts to obliterate the small space that these were designed to kind of infill, you know? So just be super careful when you're doing that. If you want to do it that way, go for it. It does make it somewhat easier to kind of get in there, but like I said, it does take up a lot of space when you start adding in all those parts. All right. So I'm going to be using a new Arduino because I think this one has seen better days. It might not even work. I'll probably use it for a prototype on another project that I'm working on just to see if it still works. And we have our connections here. So this connection is going to what's going to connect the battery, okay, to the Arduino. Let's move this back, get you more centered. Okay, to the Arduino. We are going to be occupying the VN. Where's my little pointer tool, aka screwdriver? We're going to be occupying the VN and this ground right next to each other. Okay. Now with this, you're going to be very careful because as you can see, the wires here are a lot thicker than what we have. You know what? Just to be safe, I'm going to solder in more wires with what we have because they're thinner. Because when I first did this, I had a shorting problem. Whenever these wires, they were too close on the board, and whenever they touch, it shorted everything. So I'm just going to cut these off like that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut up more wire. Not a lot, just your basic red and black. And I'm going to solder those in onto those connections so the connections can fit right into the Arduino without any type of shorting going down. You don't want shorting. Shorting sucks. All right. So here's our two wires. I'm going to go ahead and strip these. As you can see, the wires are much, much bigger than what we've been previously dealing with. All right. Now with this, I wasn't planning on having to use this stuff, but because we are going to be soldering wires together, you want to go ahead and get yourself some heat shrink, okay? Because you don't want these wires, which are exposed, crossing, because again, it'll create a short. So you don't have to, because we don't have any type of wires being soldered, but heat shrink is actually a very good thing to have on hand, just in case you run into that kind of problem. We don't need really big pieces of the heat shrink. I would say maybe one of these. That should be enough. And we're going to trim it down and cut it up so it's nice and small. If we're not dealing with a lot of wire here, there's not a lot of surface going on here. So we're going to strip this off like that. I'm going to do the other side too. We don't want a lot of wires, especially with the power. We want to make sure that this is able to get connected, because believe it or not, this connector, when they're combined, it takes up a lot of space. And I actually have to size up my Digivice. I size them up for you guys too, so you don't have that problem. But like I said, wire management, big deal. You need to know how to manage your wires. All right, so I have my stripped wires, and I'm going to take this heat shrink and I'm just going to cut it. Like maybe, that'll do it. Cut it again. Like that. Okay. So this one, we probably won't need our helping hands. We're going to do red on red, black on black, because That's probably the easiest part of this entire gig. All right, okay, so let's just wrap them around if you can. Probably can't. Probably might have to use my helping hands. They don't stay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use my helping hands, unfortunately. All right, I gotta get up and stretch. Oh, you guys like my shirt? Guess what? And then on the back, it's a chicken butt. Only cool dads will get that. All right, helping hands. Here you are. I need a better chair. Normally don't sit out here for long periods of time. All right, so we're gonna set that off to the side. We want you. And just do one at a time. You don't need to do both at once. We are not in a race. Okay. We want you. Okay, that magnifying glass does not help at all. Gotta move the ground out of the way as much as possible and get these connected. Just like so. All right. Take your solder here. Get these wires soldered up. All right. Do the other side. I don't like that connection. Do it again. Kind of want it sitting right on top. Where it kind of like completes the line, if you know what I mean. All right, that looks a bit better. It's cool. Always, always, always check your connections. All right, cool. Turn it over. Make sure you're twisting these wires good. Take your ground, plug it in. Gotta get these as close together as possible. It works. Cool. All right. Next, we got to put on our heat shrink. So basically, just want to go ahead and take this. Okay, so not that. Actually, yeah, I need to slide it on. Make sure it's covering that connection. You don't want any of that exposed wire hanging out. And you're going to take your heat gun and just heat it up. And as you heat it, it'll shrink because that's what heat guns do. Ah. Stay. You know how many times I've dropped that camera? Quite a bit. Okay. This is your standard state-of-the-art heat gun. You're just going to take it, aim it, and you're going to watch it shrink. Make sure before you get started that it is over that area. And actually, I'm going to put both parts on there now because I don't want to heat them up with solder and disengage the red wire. So you can do both wires at the same time. All right, so There's your new wire. Really easy. That's probably going to be the only time we use heat shrink. Now, I actually lied to you. If you do end up cutting wires too short, you can use this process to actually grow or add more wire to your circuit. The only downside, guys, is when you add heat shrink, these wires become more rigid, which means they're harder to manage and they're harder to bend. That's why I kind of just stay away from having to use heat shrink unless I really need to. But you want to make sure that you don't use a lot of it because, yeah, at the end of the day, this stuff is very, very rigid. It's very, very hard to bend and wrap and stuff like that. It's very difficult. But for this application where we're going to be attaching power and the ground, this is actually perfect because now we don't have a lot of wire to worry about. And the likelihood that these things are going to be shorting out like before on my original prototype is 0 to none. So, all right. I don't need my helping hands anymore. Bring you down. So now we are going to be connecting the VN and the ground. Sorry. We're going to be connecting the voltage in on this node here and then the ground on this node. So we're just going to go ahead and take this, soup in the ground, and fold that over as so. Put that down like that, and then add a little bit of solder. All right, perfect. We're going to do the same thing for the VN here. Plug it in. Thread it through. Make sure all your wires go through. You don't want any stray wires just hanging out, okay? Go ahead, thread it through. Fold it over like that. Then add your wire. Add some more solder, just a little bit. Okay. Now the test, if we have a good connection, you're going to take your battery, plug it in, and the green LED should come on the board. LEDs come on like that. So that means you have power going into this board. Perfect. Cool. I don't know what's all this glue or something. I don't know what that is. All right, so we're good with our connection. Now it's time to start putting all of our components into our Digivice. So all the soldering for now is done. What we could do actually is solder all the connections onto the board now. But we're not going to do that because we still need to insert the buttons and screw those buttons down. And with these brackets, now I did mine different because I had to take mine apart. Again, once everything is soldered up, it's soldered up. You can't really take it apart. But I had to cut off the edges here on my little brackets because I needed to take it apart. But you know that once the buttons are in, the other ends are connected to the board. The only way to get the buttons off is if you break this and get the spokes out. But these are designed to sit behind the buttons and be screwed in to the board. I mean, to the Digivice. And we're going to show you exactly what I mean right now. Okay, so we're going to take our buttons. We're going to move the LED ring over. Actually, we're going to do the LED ring first because that's like stupid easy. So here's the back of the Digivice. Here it is. Move it up a little bit. The LED ring, when you go in, should fit like that. See? It's in there. It ain't coming out. The shit is tight. Not move. It does circle around, but we don't really care about that. This is very, 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 very tight fit. You don't need any glue. You don't need any screws. You just put it in there, press it down, it's set. Now, that was the first step. I need water. Okay. Now we're going to insert our buttons, but we need to get our caps. So there's many different color caps there. It's up to you which ones you want to use. I'm just going to go with all the blues because that's the color of the buttons on the actual Digivice. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these buttons and we're just going to simply put them into these cutouts like that. Okay? So as long as that part is in there as it should, you're going to take your button and press it in there. Make sure it clicks. It clicks. Now, since we're going to be consolidating all the ground wires, make sure those ground wires are pointing towards the center of your Digivice because we're going to need to consolidate a lot of wires for the ground. All right? Do that again for the rest of them. Put this in here. Hit your second button. Again, make sure your ground wire is the side that's pointing to the center. Snap them in. Like that. Last but not least, same thing here. Snap them in. Make sure your ground wire is pointing towards the center. Like that. Cool. So we have all of our wires inserted into the Digivice. And now we're going to take our brackets and we're going to secure them down. Now, these don't pick up all the screws. What it's designed to do is that one screw for now is going to hold it in place. When you put the backing on, the second screw is actually going to go through the second hole and secure it down even more. All right. So these are using, I think, M2s. Turn that over. We're going to place this one here like that. Okay. And looking on the back of this Digivice here. No, I didn't print out my antenna. I apologize. I should have, but I didn't. Make sure I'm doing this right. So this screw here actually goes to this hole here. So we're not going to screw that down. We're going to screw down the other one to keep that in place. So when we put the top on, that screw that goes in this hole is going to go through that hole and fully secure that into place. All right, I think these are using M2s. If I remember correctly. Don't need a little big one. Just stainless steels are not magnetized. I hate that. So I'm using the M2x6 right there. Let's take this, put it in there, screw it down. Okay, come on. The fact that this isn't magnetized is very annoying. Let me see if I can get it. Get a magnetized part to do this for me. All right, let's try this. And these are self-threading, so you don't need to worry about what kind of thread you need in there or anything like that. These screws are designed to just go in and thread on their own. So they create their own thread, especially if you're using PLA. You could use, it does the same thing with resin. When I printed my morpher, it was mostly in resin, and it does thread resin too. So in case anybody was wondering. All right, let's try this again. I'm gonna go in, place that in there. God, this is gonna, I hate how it's not magnetized because the screws are stainless steel. Stainless steel does not magnetize very well. All right, got it started. Finish it off with this guy. All right, you don't want to screw down too much because the tighter you screw that screw down, the more that button is going to push against the surface and it's not going to press. So This still presses as it should, and that button is secured in there tightly. So that is good. All right. Now, I'm going to do the other side. So right now, this is going in like this. And I actually tore off the third hole on this thing. I should have reprinted it for the live stream, but sorry, didn't think about it. It worked so good the first time. All right, so we're going to put this in there like that. Make sure all your wires are out of the way. All right, and now we bring back the back of the Digivice. We have it oriented right. So this side hole here is actually going to screw in that hole there. We're going to leave that hole blank for now because the final screw that goes in there is going to go through and it's going to secure that down. So we just need, normally it would be 1, 2 to pull this down, but like I said, I broke it. So nothing to kind of pull down over there. But that's okay because once we go ahead and secure the others down, once we put the back on there, those buttons aren't going anywhere. They're staying right in place. So I'm just going to screw down this one here, hold it in place, like so. So again, check your buttons, make sure they snap, which they do. And that's it for that portion. Now we need to consolidate all of our grounds. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, and we have 4. All these grounds need to be consolidated into one wire because, like I said before, there is only one other ground on this board, and it is right there where that light is. I know you can't see it because it's not focusing, but that is where we need to put that ground. It's only 1, not 4. So we need to splice all these wires up into one wire. And because this one is already really long, what we're going to do is just cut it. And this is going to be our main wire here. Set that off to the side. We're going to strip this one. And all we're going to do is go ahead and solder all these wires together. I might cut off a little bit more material here because this is a lot of material. So I might go ahead and cut the rest of this off as here. Like that. Strip all the wires. Make sure you're twisting as you're stripping. Twisting as you're stripping. Like so. And here. Just like that. So now we take all of our wires, twist them together. As much as possible. Then we're going to take our main wire, which I'm probably going to use this one here because it's actually shorter. And we're going to go ahead, twist these all together. But first, you should probably maybe solder these up. I'm going to use my helping hands to hold them in place. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right, here we go. Now we're going to just solder this wire onto there, twist it up. We're going to add some heat shrink too. So yeah, we got to do that again. Come on, baby. Oh, soldering broke. That is okay though. When in doubt, helping hands. That's what we need right now. Again, helping hands come in great handy when you need them to. Come around this way. Move you out of the way. This way. Cure this bunch. And that. All right. That should be a good connection there. Yep, looks good to me. Gonna add this piece of heat shrink. And shrink it down. Cool. I don't even know why I unplugged my heat gun. Hold on, get in there. Now with the heat gun, because we have the PLA sitting right there, make sure that you're not aiming it at the PLA because it will actually start to melt the PLA, okay? All right, there you go. We're good. Now I really don't need this anymore. Wrap it up, put it away. We're good to go. We're in the home stretch, you guys. How's everyone feeling? Everyone doing okay? I know this is a lot, but All right, so we have our board. We have our combined mesh of wires here. Now, all we need to do is combine all of these wires onto the board, give it power, and make sure that it works. But first, we have to make sure that we do put the code on this board. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that right now. I'm going to have to turn off my overhead camera, though. So I'll plug it back in, and then you guys can have it. But first, we'll just get this going. Look who has it going. So let me go ahead and present. I'm going to go to stop screen here and present share screen, window. Oh, I see. You got to do all that fun stuff. You got to have it open. Then present. All right, share. All right, so here's our code for the Arduino. Very easy, I guess, if you know about coding and stuff like that. So when you first open up the code, you're going to look at line 10 here. As you can see, it says it's default to orange. These values, 255, 165, and 0, are the RGB values that will give you the color orange on your LED ring. You can change those values to make it any color you want. And the color codes, you can find them on Google. I've also put them in the instruction manual that comes with the files to build this thing. So you don't have to worry about that. But for now, I'm actually going to go ahead and change this to blue. I'm going to change the red to 0. I'm going to change the 165 to 0. And I'm going to change the 0 here to 255. 255 RGB. The B is obviously blue. that would be the last value that is in there. Now, if you look up here, we have our pins. Now, we only need 12 pixels here. So I'm going to change that to 12. The LED pin is going to be at 6. So if you look at your Arduino, I can't show you right now because the camera's off, but if you look at your Arduino, you're going to find pin 6. That's where the blue wire is going to go. The buttons 2, 3, and 4 are the ports 2, 3, and 4, and that is where these various red wires are going to go. You don't need to have it specific. I mean, each button is arbitrary. It doesn't matter which button it does. It's going to do whatever the code is telling it to do when the button is pushed. So don't worry about that. Just make sure that you are plugging in the reds into either 2, 3, and 4. So one wire goes to 2, the other wire goes to 3, the other red wire goes to 4. There you go. Blue wire goes to 6. This ground wire goes to the ground. Give it power. You should have everything you need. All right. So now I'm going to plug in the Arduino. Okay. Let me see. You guys can see me right now. There we go. So I'm going to plug in the Arduino via USB. Now, with the Arduinos, you want to make sure that you have a micro USB cable that also transfer not only power but data. If you're just using a micro USB cable that just does power, the Arduino program is not going to recognize the board. Okay, so here it is. When I plug it in, you should have a green LED come on. There you go. Setting up the device, nano every. You should be good to go. All right. So now we're going to go up here to our COM ports, and you should see nano every in COM5. You want to select that. What is it saying? Core has to be installed for the kernel signal on the room board. Yes, install. Install. If you don't have that installed, then you won't be able to flash the board here. So make sure you are installing. Also, make sure that you do have the Adafruit library installed, because if you go up here to line 1 where it says include Adafruit NeoPixel, it's calling out that library. So the way you do that is you go down here to library, type in Adafruit NeoPixel, and this is it right here. Adafruit DMA NeoPixel library. I already have it, so I'm not going to remove it, but all the animations and stuff that's going to get this thing to work is in this library. You need to download it. Otherwise, when you run the code, it's going to be an error. Okay? Again, all of this is pointed out in my instruction manual, so you have nothing to fear. So now we're going to go ahead and click this arrow here, and hopefully everything gets compiled and uploaded to the board without a problem. Okay, done uploading. There you go. That is an error message about something else. Don't worry about it. If you see that when you're doing yours, ignore it. It's just telling you something that is completely irrelevant right now. All right, so we got our code onto this board. Now we're going to start soldering all the connections onto this board, and we're going to give it a go before we tighten everything down and close it up. All right, stop sharing. I'm going to plug in our camera, bring it back. Let me get my feed back up here. Give me a second. I got to close it out. Then open it back up. All right, cool. All right, we're back. Got our feed going. Cool. So now, like I said, it's all a matter of getting the wires in where they need to be. So you don't want to cut them too short because you don't want to have a lot of pull or anything on like that, but I will trim these down. And keep in mind, you also want to leave a little bit of slack so when you have to open this thing up, you're not pulling on any connections, okay? So I think as is, these are fine. I think I might trim this down a little bit, just a little bit, not a lot. Okay, we're going to strip that. Strip it good. We're going to strip this. Well, that's already stripped. This needs to be stripped because we just cut it. Don't get your reds mixed up either, okay? Okay. This is going into the 5 volt from the LED ring, okay? So don't get your red wires mixed up. If that, oh boy, I don't know what would happen, but I don't think it would be very nice. All right, let's end this up. Okay, we don't need our helping hands for this. This is very self-explanatory. We're going to start with the ground. We're going to thread this wire into the ground port. We're going to fold that wire over, set it down, and we are going to solder that connection in there. All right, cool. So the ground is grounded. We're going to take our power cable from the LED ring, the red wire from the LED ring, and we're going to place it in the 5 volt pinout that is right there. 5 volts. Come on, focus for me, baby. There you go. We're going to plug it into that 5 volt pin that's right there, okay? So it should be 1 node over from your ground, from the power, boom, right there, 5 volts. That's where we're going, okay? So we're going to just thread this in, 5 volts, fold it over, get that soldering in there. Okay, boom. Just like that. Next, we're going to go to D6. That is our digital read pin for the LED ring. It's right there. D6, as you can see, D6. I'm saying this over and over again because, you know, if you're new at this, you're not really sure what you're doing, it's very useful. Repetition is the key. Gonna thread our little nano through there, or wire through the nano. And I like to put the solder underneath. It gives it a better connection. Just make sure that there's plenty of meat there. Alrighty. So now for the buttons, again, doesn't matter where you put them, as long as you're occupying holes 2, 3, and 4, you're good. 2, 3, and 4 are right here next to the ground. You got D2, D3, and D4. Remember, you're using the D's, not the A's. These are for digital, which is what we're running for. Analog is for something that's a little bit more mechanical, like a servo motor or something like that. You want to make sure that you're using your D input pins. And again, this is all pointed out in the instruction guide, okay? So I'm gonna put this into D2, which is the left pin. I don't know what that animation is. All I know is that when you hit it, it does something. So there you go. Let's solder that through, like so. Give it a nice good hit of some solder. Secure that connection. There we go. Make sure you're checking all your connections. Next one is going to be D4, which is going to be my top button. Again, it could be any button for you. Sorry, D3. That's going to be D3 for my top button. Like that. Solder that connection in there. Cool. Check that connection, looking good. And now we have D4, last but not least. I like to solder on the bottom because I don't want to risk burning any of the equipment on the top. That's why I do the bottom. You can do the top if you like. I just prefer to do the bottom. All right, that should be it. So now we're going to go ahead, plug in our power. Where'd the battery go? Oh, here you are. Should be fully charged too. You're gonna hit a button. There you go. And it's blue because we changed the code. We're gonna do the other one. You see that little green? That's because it glows in the dark. Got that animation going. Then we're gonna do this button. All right, everything works. Cool. I'm gonna disconnect power for now. Now we're gonna mount our board onto these little 4 embosses here. I'm gonna do it this way because that way we have all the real estate on this side to have this connector hang out. So we're going to be using these small screws here. We're going to be using a 1.7 by 6 right there. And we're going to just, you just have to pick up 2 corners. You don't have to do all 4. 2 corners will be just enough to secure the board down. And so this thing won't be rattling around or anything like that. So I'm going to secure this corner here. Let's grab a cable here. This one. I want this to kind of go under and around. I can do it. Probably can't. Yeah, probably can't do that the way I wanted to. That's unfortunate. Oh well. Cool. Throw this in there. Then I'm going to pick up this one on this side. All right. Battery is going to sit in this space here, so plug it up. By the way, if you just leave it plugged in, you should get about a good day of battery. You do have to open it up and unplug it in order to power everything down. There is a power saving mode that I wrote into the code. So after like a minute of inactivity, the Arduino goes into power saving mode, but the battery is still going to get drained at some point. So it's easy. In order to charge it, leave it connected and use the micro USB port here and charge it overnight. This thing is not going to blow up. All the little electronics up here is a regulator, current regulator. Once it's charged, it's charged. And the way that you would know that is when you unplug the USB. If the green light is still on because the connection here is still there, that means you have a charged battery. But there's no way to indicate when this thing is fully charged. Okay? Just throwing that out there. So we got to do some wire management here. Get all this stuff in there. I guess that'll do it. I hope. And then everything needs to go on top. Secure everything into one. This is the fun part, trying to get all the wires in there without crushing or pushing on any of the buttons. That's the fun part. Oops, this is backwards. You need to go this way. There you go. All right. So screws in the back are M2s. Stainless steel screws. Put that face down. We're going to be using 2x10s for these screws. Going to make a shallow hole, and they're going to thread as they should. Make sure you do clean out the debris in your holes from your printing. Otherwise, it's going to be a pain trying to get everything to kind of fit right. And you don't want that. There you go. Everything seems to be compressed just nicely, actually. I'm actually impressed. So it goes in there. Screw this down. I don't think that's long enough to bite. Yes? Oh, no, it is. You know what? I think I made the update on on the files. I don't think this is the updated holes call out. That's fine. It's cool. It's cool. You guys have the updated stuff, so you guys should be good. I'm just going to use slightly bigger screws for this one, and it's going to make mine look weird because the holes aren't going to be shallow, which sucks. But it's cool because I can just print out this part again and make that work as is. And I'm just going to be using slightly bigger threaded screws. That's backwards again. Turn this over and around, like so. Wire management, folks. That's the key. Gotta manage these wires. Normally I would use a glue gun. That's what I used to do to kind of get everything to go down. But that is actually not, I wouldn't say doable. Because if you have to remove wires, then you're gonna have problems later on. You gotta unglue the glue and all this other nonsense, and it's just not worth it at the end of it all. I mean, you could try, but glue guns, I know people who use glue guns. Works for them, but if you're planning on keeping everything as is, doesn't really matter because the glue guns are just going to be glue guns. But if you're planning on like maybe updating something, taking out old hardware and putting in new hardware, pain in the ass. Some 3D printer manufacturers put glue guns on their connections, and it sucks because if you have to change out a board or something, maybe the board is faulty, you have to heat up the glue and risk damaging the board before you can do anything with it. It sucks. That's why I don't like using glue guns. And I wish 3D printing companies would stop with the glue guns. Just plug in the wires, strap them things down, and that's it. All right, I got it to where I want it. Where are those longer M3s? There you are. Right here. Still some debris in this hole. But you guys kind of get the picture. I'm not going to do all the screws here. But that is basically it. I mean, nothing to it, guys. It's really simple. Once you do a project like this and get it working the way you want it to, then it turns out to be a very fun and intuitive way of doing things. Arduinos are kind of just like the in now, I guess people are calling it, because there's so much you can do with it. You know, if you can think it, you can actually do it. I know that sounds corny, but a lot of people are having a lot of fun making these props work, like in, you know, various TV shows and stuff like that. And it's a lot of like hands-on learning. That's how I learn. I'm not a coder at all. I don't like coding, but I had to learn because I wanted to eventually do things like this and get it to work and get people excited about the things that I'm doing. And it all started with my power morpher. That was actually a fun build. It took me a few months to do it, but when I got it and it worked, it was the best thing ever. I think I might be doing an upgrade for that pretty soon. Not really sure what kind of upgrade. Maybe a morpher redesign or something. This wire's stuck right here. Maybe like a flathead or something. I'm gonna push these wires out of the way. There we go. So I'm just showing you guys the electronic portion of this. I'm not showing you anything else in terms of how you want to build the crest, the antenna. That's entirely up to you guys on what you want to do. So there you go. All done. Pretty easy stuff. I hope you guys did enjoy this, because I did. I was actually kind of concerned that this would be a disaster because, well, I had built it beforehand, so I'm pretty sure it would have been fine. But you never know what can go wrong with these things. You might have the right code, your batteries might not be working right, your soldering iron might be malfunctioning. This is so much to kind of take into account. But I'm glad that I was able to sit here and walk you guys through this exciting build. Okay, you know how to change your LEDs, you know how to change the code if you want, you know how to build this thing, and this live stream is going to be up for you guys however long it is. It should be on my channel, so make sure you do subscribe to my channel. Also, if you're looking to get this STL to build your Digivice, patreon.com/Will@Heroic Studios. I still got a couple more rewards that are coming down the pike next week before the end of the month. So there's still a lot, I would say a little bit of a few things on the way. Plus, you want to gonna stick around for May. May, I mean, it's going to be an awesome month. I'm just telling you guys that right now. I've been working on some pretty neat stuff like this. So if you were able to build this thing, there is another project coming down the line that is going to incorporate everything that we did here, just in a different manner. So I hope you guys, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe over on Patreon. If you are subscribed, thank you. Welcome to all of our new members. You can find us on Facebook too, and as well as we have a Facebook group, and that's linked in the Patreon or something like that. So yeah. All right, guys, I'm signing off. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat dinner. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. So yeah, me, I got all that stuff done when I was supposed to. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you guys next time. If you have any questions, comment on this video. Let me know if you are doing some cool stuff with your Digivice. That looks really cool. I think I'm a fan of the blue. I think I'm definitely a fan of the blue. That looks cool. Oh, so let's keep it on going. Okay, there we go. Should turn off now. There we go. Awesome. All right, guys. Catch you later.